Well, there was a lot of really amazing visual ideas that were right there in the book, and it's rare to find a literary work that just seems to read like something cinematic. And so it was just a wealth of riches. Was I going to make it for the talking dog, or was I going to make it for the Bratwurst cell phone, or was it the Monster Man of freezer meats? I mean, there were so much to choose from, and I thought the guy had a particular voice that was different and strange and funny, and I loved it.
Yeah, David Wong is also a columnist for Cracked.com, and he's got some really smart, sharp columns that'll make you rethink your life in many ways. And actually, the sequel to the first book just came out. What's the sequel called?
Yeah, it's a wonderful book. It's called, This Book is Full of Spiders. Seriously, Dude, Don't Touch It. Anybody out there read the original and the sequel? Oh, good, we got some Wong fans out there, yeah. So the sequel's pretty amazing. It's a little different in tone and a lot of cool stuff in it. Yeah, definitely, for sure.
One of the great things about the film is, and I don't think it would have been possible if you had cast anyone else as Dave and John. You really looked into these guys that are able to deliver this dialogue and have a really good rapport. Can you talk about where you found them?
It's one of the conditions of making the film, obviously under modest means, was that the two leads would most probably have to be unknown actors that we could get for cheap. And so that was a condition from the beginning, which was really worrisome for the director. Talk about horror films. I mean, for the horrific moments for a director, or this idea that you got to find some young guys who could carry an entire movie. Luckily, this kid Chase Williamson walked in, and he'd been in nothing. He had been no TV, no movies. I think he was in one project video on YouTube, and that was it. And another frightening moment, maybe the most frightening moment for me in the making of the film, was that the way the scheduling worked out is our very first day of shooting was in the Chinese restaurant, and Chase had to perform 8 pages of dialogue with Paul Giamatti on his first day of work ever on a motion picture. So, he obviously had ice water in his veins and was able to pull it off without wilting. But I'm sure you have to give some credit to Paul, because he made sure to spend time with Chase, the weekend and a couple days beforehand, working on lines. And Paul's a really down-to-earth, very good guy, and the two of them became friends, and it was evidently easy for them.
And how did Paul Giamatti and you hook up? Because it wasn't specifically for this. You guys were talking about some other involvement together. Can you talk about how you met him?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all horror director Eli Roth's fault, because I got this email from Eli, and I don't know if any of you have ever met Eli before, but he's a very animated character. He's a great spokesman for the genre. Some folks have called him the Walt Disney of horror. But Eli had, I guess, been over in Eastern Europe working on one of the Hostel movies. And Paul was, of course, not working on one of the Hostel movies. And I actually learned from Eli later that Eli was trying to get Paul to make an appearance and do a killing in the Hostel movie, but it didn't work out. Paul was there working on The Illusionist, or one of those other highfalutin intellectual films that he does. And so I got this email from Eli, and Eli just said that he had met Paul, had lunch with him, and all Paul wanted to talk about was Bubba Ho-Tep, and that I needed to track him down because he wanted to meet me. And so I did ultimately meet him, and it was true. And we got to be friendly and talked about things. I tried to get another project together, which didn't work out. And in the meantime, Paul had established a small production company and had been making some interesting movies like Cold Souls. They have another one coming out soon, I think it's called Almost Christmas this year, which stars Giamatti and Paul Rudd, and they play these French-Canadian Christmas tree importers, and there's some heist or something. Sounds like a lot of fun. But anyway, so Paul came on board, and that's how it worked out.
Any questions from the audience? Don't be shy. Yes, there in the hat.
The Camel Holocaust song it was written by David Wong, but it looks like the music was done by a family member of yours.
Yes, my son's a guitarist, and he had actually written this song that I really loved a lot, and we had to get the Camel Holocaust song for John's band, Three Arm Sally, to play, and so I threw out this idea that maybe I'd asked my son Andy if he would mind removing the previous lyrics he had in there and instead replace them with the Camel Holocaust lyrics, which are pretty bizarre. If you get a chance to pick up the book, you might want to read those lyrics. They're pretty funny. But yeah, he did that, and then of course one of the other things with you know, total mistake on my part in terms of casting. You know, when you have a movie which has you know, very different requirements for an actor, it's probably a smart idea in rehearsal or in your audition to go through those more difficult moments to see if they could do it. I never once talked to Rob Mays, who played John, if he could play guitar or if he could get up on stage and, you know, play like he was a rock god. And it was quite a surprise that night that he owned that song, so it was lucky for me.
We had another question, just in front. Yes?
No, I kind of lost it, but good job. I mean, incredible job casting Rob Mays as John. He killed it, man. Like, he was perfect. The guy's also a friend of mine, so. But yeah, he's an awesome actor. You guys should follow him.
And the interesting thing about those guys is now, I mean, John Dies at the End is going to, like your other films, kind of have this really kind of groundswell cult appeal, and these guys are going to be set for the horror film conventions for the rest of their lives. They're your new you got 2 new Angus Scrims.
Well, that's, you know, one of the benefits about toiling in this horror genre is there are these really cool events. I don't know if anybody, I'm sure some of you out there have been attended some of the different horror conventions. Here we've got the Rue Morgue's Festival of Fear, and they're just amazing times, and for actors especially who have 1 or 2 really interesting roles, they can just experience the fans' love of their work, and it's so much fun. I've gone to some of these events with Angus Scrimm from the Phantasm films, and he played our priest in here. And this is a guy who scared a lot of folks when they were very young, and it's quite wonderful to see folks relate to him and how they have such a bond with a guy who scared them. It's strange.
And speaking of other scary guys, how did you come to cast Clancy Brown from Highlander and many, many other things?
Well, I've been a gigantic fan of him forever, you know, and I think that was one of the great things about making this movie is we had these moments where we could put these veteran actors in and didn't need them for a lot of days, so you know, we could get them to come in for not that much money. So I was able to grab a lot of folks that I had always wanted to make movies with, and Clancy was one of them. You know, my personal favorite is his appearance in Starship Troopers. Now, that's a great movie. And then, of course, Highlander and Shawshank Redemption, and then that great HBO show, Carnival. He was awesome in that. And, you know, he was all over playing that role and really enjoying, you know, pushing the boundaries on that. Also, it was great to involve Doug Jones in the movie. I've been a fan of his for a lot of years now. And in fact, you know, the casting for Doug Jones, who played Roger North, and he was Abe Sapien in Hellboy, and I don't know what the name of the character was in Pan's Labyrinth, you know, the guy with the eyeballs in his hands. Yeah.
Pale Man.
Yes. And, but I had gone to one of those horror conventions, and sitting across from me was Doug Jones, and the whole weekend I watched him, and all these fans would come up to him, and everyone loved him, and they all wanted to hug him, you know, and he was just a fan favorite, and I thought, you know, put in the back of my mind, one day I got to work him into something, and then when I saw this strange role, I was able to bring him. So I think maybe one of the most satisfying parts of making this movie for me was to work with some of these great guys like Giamatti and Clancy, Doug, and of course Glyn Turman, who played our detective. He's a terrific actor.
Anyone else here? Yes.
Yeah, I've been a long fan of yours since I saw Phantasm as a kid, but I noticed that a lot of your films, I love the way you think outside the box. Your films always do. And a lot of your films have a recurring theme about what possibly lies beyond life. and it's not always, and it's done in an unconventional way. Phantasm, Bubba Ho-Tep, and now John dies at the end. Where your ideas come from? I mean, do you look for these? Do something totally different to do?
Yeah, well, look, I don't think I'm much different than the rest of humanity, which is we're all pondering that one great question, which is, what happens in you, you know? And, you know, a lot of people find it through religion. A lot of people look for it in science, and I tend to, like, look for it more in science fiction. I'm thinking about that all the time, and always wondering what is beyond, and it fascinates me, and I see other folks' movies that do things with that. I read amazing stuff in science journals about parallel membrane dimensions and string theory and all that kind of stuff. And so, you know, when I find a work like David Wong's where he philosophizes about some of this weird stuff, I think, well, somebody's got to bring this to the masses so they can all chew on it and obsess on it the way I do. So that's probably why. Yeah, it is a recurring theme. One day I'll find the answer, and then I won't have to make movies anymore. Oh, yes.
It's been a few years since Bubba Ho-Tep came out, and I was wondering if you could talk about the differences that you've noticed as a filmmaker in getting films distributed and getting them in front of audiences, the differences between releasing one a few years ago and touring around with the Don Coscarelli now.
You know, the sad part for aspiring filmmakers out there was that when we put out Bubba Ho-Tep, things were really different. I mean, we had a knockout screening here at Toronto and couldn't get one offer from a distributor. So I literally had to go out and with the help of Bruce Campbell in key moments, is self-distribute. And it worked out great because it turned out that every one of these events where Bruce would appear, essentially we were selling future sales of DVDs down the line, and the DVD market was robust, and there was a lot of money to be made there. It all worked out great. The effort was worth it, you know. And I could think to myself, "Fuck you, distributors! I did it my way and still made money," you know. But now times are changing. The DVD market has gotten a little softer. The piracy has increased tremendously. Well, there was no real piracy back then. And so there are a lot of impediments to the commercial success of the movie. And this is exciting, what the guys here at Raven Banner are doing, and with the help of Cineplex and the assistance of Anchor Bay, which has always been a perennial supporter of horror films, is to try something outside of the box, which is to get the theatrical experience, even if it's only for a day or two, you know, that then could hopefully drive and legitimize the sale of the DVD. With luck, it will work. But I will say that, you know, until the online component starts to feed some serious dollars back to the filmmakers, it's just going to be a tough road. And I could only say that any of you guys planning independent films out there, I just would make them as cheap as possible now, because to recoup the money is so, you know, you cannot make a movie for $3 billion and hope to get your money back anymore, which you could 10 years ago. Yeah. Good question, thanks.
Basically devote half your budget to your promotion and marketing and distribution, because you're probably going to do that yourself. If you're doing a quiet, sensitive drama about young people talking, use 75% of your budget for marketing. No one wants to see that. Don and I worked together on Bubba Ho-Tep here in Canada, and that was the first time that I'd gone out and done actual theatrical distribution. And luckily all the theaters, as soon as one theater found out that I had it, everyone wanted to book it. But it was still a really hard thing getting a booking here. And actually with what Raven Banner is doing with this series, like tonight, you guys weren't the only ones seeing it across in Canada. There are 25 other cities where people have been seeing this film tonight. So I could tell my friends in Sudbury to go see this film, in Regina. So now with digital, there's a lot more kind of flexibility on it. But one of the difficulties with a film like this, and even to some extent, I mean, Bubba Ho-Tep was an easier kind of pitch. Like you could say, it's like Elvis, JFK, a mummy. John Dies at the End is try and describe this to your friends tonight. Just try. And it's hard because a lot of the companies just want something which can be pigeonholed. Even Eli Roth, when he had Cabin Fever, one of the distributors like, well, how about it's a monster? We need something which you can put on the box. If there's like a monster which gave them the flesh-eating virus, then we can sell it. but that's not what the film's about. So we had another question, which was right here.
You made a reference to modest means, and then you said I would never spend over $3 million. And mind to read between the lines that this movie cost less than $3 million. Wow, because it's very dense and there's so much going on.
So thank you for saying that. A lot of work went into, doing it on that. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I just thank you for saying that. Look, the things are is that to make a movie on a small budget, maybe that's the reason it takes me forever between films to make them. Is that unfortunately, so much grunt labor falls to the filming team. On the big studio things, you can be in that air-conditioned trailer and everybody's running around doing everything, but a lot of lugging and hard work, and then editing and post-production to make it all come together. So, appreciate you saying that. Thank you. So, any others out there? Yes.
What's the ratio between practical and computer effects that you did in the film, and why did you choose that ratio?
I think that we did. Look, they're all tools. The practical effects is a tool, and they work great in certain things, and other things they don't. And digital effects can be magnificent and open up all kinds of stuff. Basically, since we were budget limited, we had to find a reasonably efficient way of doing the visual effects that would work. And so I always tried to lean towards prosthetics because you have an actual tangible thing that the actors can work off of. I remember seeing the great Paul Verhoeven in an environment like this, and he was bragging about in Starship Troopers, back to my favorite movie, how they had no bugs on set, because they were all digital. So he would play the bug with these two bamboo sticks with tennis balls, and he would act it out. And I'm like thinking, how the hell did an actor play off this director jumping around with tennis balls? It's an impossible task for them. And so that's why you have this tangible. So that one of the big breakthroughs was when a friend of mine who did the animated sequence, his name's David Hartman, was a wonderful, talented illustrator and animating director. I asked him to do an illustration of the meat monster, and the one that he did, the first time I looked at it, I thought, oh, this could be a man in a suit, because of the way he designed it. And so at that point, then we commissioned Bob Kurtzman, who was the K from the great K&B Effects House, and also the creator of our Bubba Ho-Tep mummy. And so Bob built this just gorgeous suit, and then the actors could relate to that. And then, when the sausage links fly out, they would act, I don't know how one would do that in a digital environment, have put a digital arm around an actor and have them work, would be impossible. But in that same sequence at the end, just to jazz it up a little bit, we put a couple digital trouts like moving up along his back as he came together, and it's hard to tell if it's a prosthetic or if it's a digital there. Unfortunately, some of the later aspects of the movie required, big epic effects that there was no way to do practically, and so we relied on digitally. Some worked great, and other ones were, are what they are, but the best we could do under the circumstances, really. But I think it was just a completely practical approach, what we could do that would work within our means.
And anyone else? Okay, well, we'd like to wrap it up, but I would like to actually point out BioCop, the coming attraction short film BioCop. That's actually going to be seen. That's by Steve Kostanski, the director of Manborg. And Manborg, Anchor Bay, and Raven Banner are putting that out on DVD April 16th, I believe. So tell your friends to go out and look out for BioCop and Manborg. So thank you very much, Don, and thank you, Anchor Bay. Great dance.
Thanks again for everybody coming out, for everybody who asked a question. We've got a signed copy of Room Morgue by Don Coscarelli for you for asking your questions, so I'll come and give them to you personally.
Wow, what a treat. Thank you all.
Last thing, folks, don't forget the DVD comes out next Tuesday. So go by and tell all your friends.